Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It's me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and today we're going to get ahead of the waiver wire. That's right, because a lot of your leagues have already opened up waivers, and Jake Ciey from The Athletic and I are going to help you get some names on your rosters before everybody else, because we want to save you time, energy, and most importantly, your fab budget. That's right, your free agent budget. We want you to have as much as you can, so let's get ahead of everybody else. Let's be smarter. Let's work together to get the right guys on that roster. And Jake Ciey, we're going to start things off here with a bang. I've been drafting this guy everywhere. I know you and I were fighting over him on a draft today, but Ollie Gordon of the Miami Dolphins looks like he might have a role in this offense. Now, Devon Achane is tending toward playing right now. It seems like it's going in that direction where he's going to be ready week 1 as of recording this. But it is a calf issue, and it is a guy that's had some injury history in the past. Ollie Gordon, in case you didn't know, had 26 carries for 126 rushing yards, 3 receptions for 48, and that was a pretty good preseason for Ollie Gordon, the OSU product. And Ollie Gordon just looked comfortable in the offense. And Jake, we've seen Ollie Gordon perform well, but we've also seen Miami use multiple running backs for fantasy in this offense, just dial back a couple years ago to Raheem Mostert too. So let's talk about the reasons why you think Ollie Gordon should be somebody you add now and not wait for the end of week 1.
Yeah, and the best part about it is just taking before the waivers. I have an article at The Athletics, the free guys. I do the free guys every single year, basically 150 plus pick in ADP. And the first 4 of these 5 names are free still as of right now. Now, yeah. Ollie Gordon's at the top of the list for 2 reasons. One is he's probably not going to be as free if you're drafting this weekend, but he's still somebody going outside the top 100 and somebody that should not be going that far. As you mentioned, that draft you and I were in, I think it was the 8th or 9th round he went. You probably don't have to go that early. Maybe it was the 10th, but somewhere around there. I looked to get him because let's take one step back. You talk about everything we like from him. There's 2 things here. Is one, Jalen Wright did everything he could to look like the worst running back in the NFL in the preseason. And then he got hurt on top of it. So even if Achane plays 17 games, we've seen Raheem Mostert. Oh, by the way, he had the better season than Achane. I don't think Ollie Gordon's going to have a better season than Achane. The point being is you kind of set it up. We know this backfield is a 2-headed monster. They use both. Mm-hmm. This is like the Lions. We want that second piece. He can be David Montgomery for the Dolphins. And the biggest appeal here, and you remember this because we talked about him like a month and a half ago on this network, and I said I thought he fit the Raheem Mostert role better than Jalen Wright, but Jalen Wright was in front of him. At that time, I was still drafting Jalen Wright but taking flyers on Ollie Gordon. But as I mentioned, everything Wright did was terrible. Everything Ollie Gordon has done reminded of us 2 years ago in 2023 when we're like, oh, this might be a first-round running back. Of course, 2024 happened, but now he's set up to worst-case scenario, give you flex running back value. Best-case scenario, Achane misses any time, and now you're talking about top 20, even potentially better.
Yeah, before the injury, Jalen Wright averaging, I think, 1.6 yards per carry. Yay, get excited,
which is what he did last year.
All right, let's talk about another running back, too. And as Jake said, I want to just reiterate this for the audience, too. Don't forget, if you're in these drafts and deeper leagues, too, draft these guys, okay? They're going almost free, but in case your drafts already happened, these are our targets for early waiver wire this week. Let's talk about Dylan Sampson. Now, the Cleveland Browns backfield situation is certainly one that is in motion. Jerome Ford's there. Judkins, we throw our hands up here at this point. But what do you see in Dylan Sampson that makes him potentially valuable in fantasy early on?
Yeah, Judkins, can I do the shrug emoji? Like, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, that's the best analysis I think anyone can give on the situation.
Well, I will say, I'm glad we recorded this after something happened this morning because Pierre Thomas yesterday got released. And I'm like, oh, maybe they know Judkins' situation is going to get figured out and the NFL is going to suspend him 2 games or something. But then they picked up Raheem Sanders off waivers and added him to the backfield, which goes back to, okay, maybe they don't. All right, so what's the one thing that we do know? We know Jerome Ford, and we know Jerome Ford's a good running back. He's a replaceable running back. Dylan Sampson has some like Tajay Spears to his game, some. Yeah. And if we said Tajay Spears was on the Browns and we had this situation going on, everybody would be drafting Tajay Spears as an RB3, which is what's the constant that we know? Dylan Sampson, similar to T's number 5, his role is secure whether it's Jerome Ford or Judkins ever gets onto this team as the passing down complement Jaylen Warren in this offense. Yes, it's the Browns, but it's the Browns with Joe Flacco right now. Joe Flacco, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Joe, over his last 17 starts, 4,400 passing yards. This offense is going to do things. I don't expect it to be a top 10 offense, but it's going to be productive more so than people think. I would take it over the Saints. I would take it over the Giants as of today. So Dylan Sampson, another one that could be an RB3 for you, especially if you went wide receiver heavy.
1,000 of those passing yards, by the way, to the opposing safeties and corners on the other team.
That made it 5,000, Joe. So there you go.
Probably right. But no, you're not wrong. Which brings us to the next guy on our list.
I know.
Segue, Cedric Tillman, who we were just in a draft that literally just wrapped up before this show, the CBS Experts League for the St. Jude's charity that we do every year. And I drafted this guy, and I've been drafting this guy, and I got into a little tussle in July with Pat Fitzmaurice about Deontay Johnson. I said, Deontay Johnson's been on 3 teams in a year. He's done. He's dusted. It's over. And sure enough, he was part of cut day yesterday. And Cedric Tillman, look, this was a prospect that I liked coming into the NFL to begin with. And I knew it was going to be a little bit of a slow burn. As you mentioned, with Flacco, I'm very optimistic here. He can carve out a nice number 2 wide receiver role. You saw a short window there over like a 4-game stretch where Tillman was very useful. And once again, you talk about free guys. He's a free square. And I think you and I see eye to eye on Cedric Tillman as well.
Yeah, it was one of the few times where you popped my cue over at CBS. I mean, we were 8 picks apart, so it's going to happen anyway. But like, this was one of the ones where I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to still get Cedric Tillman. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. Joe got him. Because here's the appeal. You bring up that 4-game sample, 40 targets. Do I think that Cedric Tillman's walking into 170 targets? Absolutely not. Do I think he's going to be the top 2 option? Yes, because he is a top 2 option. Now, of course, David Njoku's in the mix. But if I said there's a world, Joe, where we do somehow get Flacco for 17 games and we get to week 17, and similar to the argument about Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, and then he said that Cedric Tillman outscored Jerry Jeudy, I would not fall out of my chair shocked. I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I never saw that happening. There's a world where it can happen because you just brought up the 4-game sample. He's a productive wide receiver that everybody last year was calling a post-hype sleeper, and now he has Joe Flacco as his quarterback, at least to start the season, if not at least 10, 12 games before they start thinking about 2026 if Flacco doesn't get hurt. And he's very similar to number 4, but similar to number 4 when we talk about him, the segue into him, the one thing I know about Joe Flacco, I just brought up those 4,400 yards. He is going to chuck the ball, chuck the ball, chuck the ball. Well, who do I want in that scenario? The number 2 on his team that has a ton of big playability.
Yeah, he's cheaper than Jerry Jeudy. There's a lot of reasons, I think, to like Cedric Tillman there. Don't love the Browns. Half the price, yeah, but I mean, all of those are good reasons there. And Cedric Tillman, again, I knew it was going to take a little while for him to pop off, and had he stayed healthy, maybe this would be a different conversation, but he didn't last year. Right. So there's value there coming in, and whether you're drafting late here or, again, the waiver wire is now open for business, you want to add these guys. So far we've talked about Ollie Gordon, we've talked about 2 Browns there, Dylan Sampson, Cedric Tillman. Again, players on bad teams sometimes get overlooked in drafts, and rightfully so, but in these circumstances, this is a time to buy in on some of these guys who can be productive in fantasy. We have 2 more names we want to talk about. Before we do, just a quick reminder, if you've got drafts remaining this weekend, and I know you do, use the draft assistant right now during all of your drafts. Don't miss out on your high upside targets or some of these guys that we're talking about right now. You can save yourself some fab and just add them to your bench. Draft assistant connects directly to your draft and provides both real-time pick suggestions and estimations on which players might be taken before your next pick. Draft assistant fully integrates your customized draft sheets, your cheat sheets, your suggested picks based on your rankings, team build, ADP, and other factors. So if you want to dominate all your drafts in real time without the guesswork, Draft Assistant is the way to do it. FantasyPros.com/assistant, or make it easy on yourself. Download the Fantasy Pros app today. Try it for free. You get the 3-day free trial at Fantasy Pros Premium at FantasyPros.com/premium. Go sync your leagues for free. Don't be a tool. Use the tools. All right, next guy on our list is a Denver Bronco wide receiver that made a flurry of touchdowns at the end of 2024. Now, Derek Brown keeps saying, that's not sustainable, and he's probably right, but there's room for somebody else here as Bo Nix hopefully takes another step further in his development. So let's talk about Marvin Mims and what the upside is for him this season.
Yeah, so you see Marvin Mims isn't going to catch 32 touchdown passes this year. Dang, I have to redo my projections.
I think it was 30 in your projections, but it's close.
All right. Look, this is coming from somebody who hasn't been a Marvin Mims fan due to the perception of everybody else. Like I brought up and I said, Marvin Mims, he's a possession wide receiver, which people don't seem to want to accept, and I'm not coming for people or anything. I'm just saying, like, people say the big playability, and what I mean by possession wide receiver is somebody who doesn't do a ton after the catch. So let me make that clear. He has 20, 30, 40-yard big playability. That is very clear, but he a lot of times goes down after he catches the ball, which is fine because, like Cedric Tillman, I want that big playability. I want the number 2 on the offense. He has clearly been the number 2 as we yelled at our screens last year at the end of the season, like, Sean Payton, give him more snaps. What the hell are you doing? And Sean Payton, he was like, I guess I should give him more snaps. Like, yeah, no kidding, because the rest of the guys on your team are fine options, but nobody's playing to his level. So if you tell me that Mims and Tillman both walk into 110, 120 targets as the number 2s this year, I actually think they're going to be very similar in the production. The only splitting difference was if you said Cedric Tillman has Dylan Gabriel from week 1, he'd probably be number 5 and might not even make the list. But he has Joe Flacco as of today. Bo Nix, I don't think will pass quite as much as Joe Flacco, but I know the touchdowns will be there. We saw him as a rookie, and I know he will pass enough that Marvin Mims, you tell me he's a wide receiver 4 and I have to live through the ups and downs as my wide receiver 4? Absolutely. But as you've been saying this whole show, Joe, you're picking him off waivers, and if you're drafting this weekend, he's still free. You don't even have to say he's my wide receiver 4. He could be your bench option.
Yeah, and look, you never have enough depth of quality here, whether it be a wide receiver or running back. So, make these adjustments in your draft strategy, add these guys to your queue late. And this is where you can really gain an advantage too, because if you talk about, sometimes people don't have the attention span, like the draft starts to get away from a lot of the normies and the casuals out there where all of a sudden their depth of the pool isn't very good. This is where we come in to help you with these names. And we've got one more for you too that we want to talk about. And it's in the Washington Commander backfield. Now, Chris Rodriguez is that guy for me, because I think that's the dude that's going to get the goal line work. And to me, that's where it's really valuable. But you're thinking in some of those more shallow leagues too, that Austin Ekeler is probably floating around there in some of those 10-teamers. So let's talk about Austin Ekeler. And now that Brian Robinson Jr. finds himself outside of this Washington Commander backfield, who's got the inside track to the fantasy volume?
Yeah, well, it's 12-team-2 to be clear, and I know some people might be watching this being like, not my league. I go by under 60% on Yahoo, and that's pretty much a pretty good barometer for the most leagues. So Austin Ekeler might be already drafted, might already be on rosters, but if you go by under 60%, he's not. He's around the 50% mark, and it's been climbing. It was already in the 40s, and I bring him up similar to Dylan Sampson is that if you're right about Chris Rodriguez, great for the people there in Chris Rodriguez. Sorry, Krosky Merritt people. If you're wrong, cool for Krosky Merritt people, bad for Chris Rodriguez. The one thing that doesn't matter for either one of them is Austin Ekeler is Austin Ekeler is Austin Ekeler. Yes, last year was a disappointment because he got hurt, but while he was out there, similar to the Christian Kirk argument we make all the time, he was productive when he was on the field. Is he more than an RB3 at this point? No. Do you want him in non-PPR? Probably not even in non-PPR, but half and full point PPR as your RB3, which again, he's going to be on your bench. So you can kind of, what I like about Ekeler is taking him off waivers or double-digit rounds, putting him on your bench, and then taking a flyer as your third running back. So if that busts, then you have Ekeler to fall back on as your flex option, even if you need the flex option. He's just that reliable, hey, you know what? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get double-digit points every single game. Maybe I don't get you 25, but I'm out there producing top 30 numbers every single week as a half or full point PPR running back.
I got one more for you in deeper leagues too.
I'm glad.
It's a prospect that I liked in draft season, and I like the landing spot too for him. Elic Ayomanor.
Yeah, love it.
That's another guy too that I would just, if you're in a 14-team league, he's probably still undrafted, I would imagine. I don't think it's going to be September, but at some point, I think he's going to work his way up the depth chart, and I think he and Cam Ward are going to make some beautiful music together at some point in the second half. So that's another name.
Do you want to hear the line from my Free Guys article?
And legitimately is he in there too?
He said, has to work his way up the depth chart, but he only has to pass the deteriorating Tyler Lockett and Van, hey, I make 2 big plays a year, Jefferson.
That's not too hard. Ayomanor, he's a dude.
He also had a great game against Travis Hunter when they faced Colorado.
I mean, that's what everybody always points to is that one clip of him mossing Hunter, which is fun, which is impressive.
It was the entire game that he did well.
It was the entire game. He did have a huge game there. But that one catch that he makes there where he's,
in the overtime,
in the end zone, over the top of his head, and he's dragging him into the end zone with him.
I thought you were going to go?
What I've seen, the two of them, he and Cam Ward seem to have a nice chemistry too early on, which is nice to see.
Which I really like. I thought you were going to bring up, we'll throw out another bonus one. I thought you were going to bring up Ezek Teslaw, who I compared to last year's Jawan Jennings. Juwan Jennings
Okay.
needed injury in front of him. But if any of the three get hurt, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, or even Sam Laporta, and they decide to run some more three wide. And by the way, the one thing that they said they're not making a lot of changes in their offense, but the one thing they do want to try a little bit more this year is some of the big play opportunities. By the way, if anybody gets hurt, Tesla is going to be this year's Juwan Jennings, where everybody is scrambling to the waiver wire to get him.
All right, so those are the names that get ahead of everybody else in your league, and that's why you subscribe to Fantasy Pros. And while you're at it, make sure you're taking advantage of everything that we have here. If you want to dominate your fantasy draft with Fantasy Pros Premium, now is the time. Free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first trade over at NoVig. This is the easiest way to get full access to our top fantasy tools like the Draft Assistant that we talked about earlier, and all the tools all season long, Waiver Wire Assistant, the Trade Analyzer, everything. You get access to the best draft tools on the planet in season and in your draft for free, thanks to our friends at NoVig. So check out this premium offer for you at fantasypros.com/premium. Get started there today. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Jake Ciey of The Athletic, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.